What's going on, duelists? It's your boy Nick, bringing you today on the channel a combo and test hand video for my Volcanic Snake Eye Fire King 60 card deck profile for the March 2024 format. For those of you new to the channel, welcome. My name is Nick. We do Yu-Gi-Oh content mainly focused around rogue and casual decks alike. If that's the kind of Yu-Gi-Oh that you're interested in, then I highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any more of my uploads. We are currently working our way to 1,500 subscribers, and I need your help to get there, and we are closer than we've ever been before. So, Volcanic Snake Eye Fire King. I am going to leave a link in the description down below for the deck profile. I decided to put this concoction together because, well, I just thought it'd be kind of funny. I like Volcanics very, very much after building them pure, and I wanted to see how far I could actually push the deck while, at least at the time of recording, everything is still legal, you know, before our TCG ban list drops. So with that being said, this is a 60 card build, and I'm hard pressed to just do, like, you know, 2 to 3 card combos with you guys. So I think what I'm actually going to do is just test hands, because I feel like that's the best way to showcase what this deck is actually like in a real world situation, as opposed to just doing combos, because this deck is 60 cards, it has countless combos. Like, I could literally make a 45-minute video probably showing you combos, and I just don't want to, you know, make my videos that long, number one, and number two, you know, I feel like just the test hands give you more real world scenarios, as opposed to just like, let me draw the, you know, add the best cards to my hand and show you what they do when I go off uninterrupted kind of thing. So like I said, I'm going to leave a link in the description down below for the profile. Feel free to check that out before we do the combos, because I'm not really going to be going that in depth with the cards. I'm just strictly going to be comboing with them. So we went ahead and shuffled and we cut, and we're going to play this out like we are going first. So we're going to start our 5-card hand. Spiritual Fire Art Kurenai, Original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye, Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils, Fire King High Avatar Kirin, and a Volcanic Shell. So this is a pretty good opening hand, actually. I mean, there's a couple of dead cards, like the Kurenai I usually don't want to draw, and even the Original Sinful Spoils, but to be fair, that's not really a problem. This hand is still very much playable. So we're going to lead things off by activating Wanted, Seeker of Sinful Spoils, to add ourselves a copy of Dia Bellstar, the Black Witch, from the deck to our hand. And then at Resolution, this will go to Grave. So now this is what our hand looks like. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to activate the Dia Bellstar, the Black Witch, by sending our Volcanic Shell to Grave to special summon the Dia Bellstar out to the field. Now, we already drew the target that she's supposed to set, and this is why hard opening the Original Sinful Spoils sometimes is bad, especially if you're only playing one. But to be fair, at least with the current ban list, one is more than enough. I don't think you need more than that. So we are not going to be using Dia Bellstar's effect on field to set a Sinful Spoils spell trap, because we already have it. So we're just going to go ahead and activate this from the hand, sending our Black Witch to the graveyard. And with this particular setup, I think we're going to go ahead and lead into our Snake Eye package. So let's go ahead and summon the boy that everybody knows and loves, Snake Eye Ash, from our deck. Activate the effect of Ash to go ahead and add ourselves a Snake Eye card from deck to hand. Or actually not a Snake Eye card, excuse me, a level 1 fire monster, which is going to be Poplar in almost every scenario that you are using him. So add Poplar to hand. Then, because Poplar was added to the hand except by drawing it, we can activate Poplar's effect in hand to special itself. Then we can activate Poplar's effect on summon to go ahead and add a Snake Eye spell trap from deck to hand. And this is where the Snake Eye field spell comes in very, very handy. So we're going to go ahead and search for our copy of the Divine Temple of the Snake Eye from deck to hand. Now, before we get any further, remember that we do have a Volcanic Shell in our graveyard, so we're going to go ahead and utilize the Shell effect, paying 500 of our life points to search for another copy of Shell. Not only deck thinning, but also just adding more fires to the flame, I guess. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and link off the Poplar for a Link 1 monster of choice. Generally, in this situation, if we're going first, we're usually going to make Link Haribo. That will trigger Poplar's graveyard effects to allow us to place a fire monster from our graveyard in our spell trap zone as a continuous spell. So we'll go ahead and put the Poplar here in our spell trap zone. Now at this point, we can go ahead and use Snake Eye Ash's effect, sending himself and the Poplar to the graveyard to summon out a Snake Eye from the hand or the deck, which in this case we're grabbing the Flamberge Dragon from our deck. Very insane card, obviously. Pardon the zone placement with the playmat. The zones are actually kind of up high because the extra monster zone's cut in half. But obviously I don't want you guys to see half an extra deck, so I kind of just playing with the cards like a few inches lower than they should be. So hopefully that doesn't bother anybody, but wanted to show off the Fire King playmat, you know, because it just obviously is very fitting for the theme, but it looks also really cool. So anyway, now that we got Flambridge on the field, we're pretty much already, like, if they Nibiru us, I mean, we already have the fodder we need engraved to summon back. So, like, at this point, everything that we do moving forward is pretty much just free extension. So we can go ahead and activate the Divine Temple of the Snake Eye here. That's going to go ahead and allow us to place a Snake Eye from our hand, deck, or graveyard face up in our spell Trap Zone as a continuous spell. So let's go ahead and grab ourselves a copy of Snake Eye Oak, place him in the spell Trap Zone off of the effect of Divine Temple. Then at this point we can go ahead and use our copy of High Avatar Kirin, destroying our shell in the hand to special summon itself. Then we can use Shell's Grave Effect, paying 500 more life to add another copy of Shell from the deck to our hand. There it is. Now, there's a couple of things that we can do here. We can actually extend quite hard if we so choose. It really just depends. I mean, the world's our oyster. Couple of things that we can do here. We haven't normal summoned yet, because obviously we summoned the Ash off the original. So I guess what we can do at this point is we can go Wanted Effect, banishing itself, to then place the original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye from our graveyard on the bottom of the deck, and then we get to draw a card. So we can go ahead and do that. See what we can dig into, and that's a Blaze Accelerator Reload. That's actually pretty cool. So, given that this is what our hand currently looks like, let's try and take this a bit further. So now, we can utilize Flambridge to put a monster from the spell trap, or from the graveyard or field into the spell trap zone, but right now there's not really a need for that at the moment. So we can just capitalize on the fact that we have 2 level 8 bodies here, and go ahead and overlay using our Flambridge and our Kirin to make a zombie vampire. Now we can go ahead and utilize the zombie vampires effects by detaching the Kirin. This will, both players are going to mill 4 cards off the top of their deck. So obviously we don't have an opponent, but we're just going to mill off of our own side. Seti and a Rimfire. So off of the zombie vampire, we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a copy of Seti, Glory of Horus. And then at resolution, we're going to go ahead and trigger the effect of Rimfire. Since it was sent to the graveyard, we can banish it to then send a volcanic monster from our deck to grave, except a copy of himself. That will go ahead and place a copy of, if I could find it, our Volcanic Emperor to the graveyard. Then, we still haven't normal summoned yet, so honestly we could just normal summon the shell, as crazy as that sounds. From this point here, we could go ahead and use the Linkuriboh, the shell, and the zombie vampire as link material to go ahead and make ourselves a copy of the Promethean Princess. We can then utilize Princess's effect to special summon a monster from our graveyard, so we can actually get back our copy of Flambridge from our grave using Princess, which is obviously very crazy. And now at this point, we can actually go ahead and utilize our Emperor effect engrave, because we do have 3 Pyros we can banish for its effect, which will be Shell, Shell, and Shell. That will allow us to go ahead and special summon the Emperor from our graveyard. We will then burn our opponent for 500 damage times the number of banished Pyros, which is 4, so they'll take 2,000 damage here on the Summon of Emperor, and we also get to set a Volcanic Trap directly from our deck to our side of the field, which will be a copy of Volcanic Emission. So we can go ahead and set Volcanic Emission to our side of the field. And then we can also set, obviously, the Spiritual Fire Arts. And then before we wrap things up, we can go ahead and link off the Promethean and the Imseti. Yeah, link off Promethean and Imseti. We'll keep Flambridge on our side of the field to go ahead and make a play for Ambloale. That way we can put Princess in grave and have the Princess Disruption in our graveyard. And then, do we do anything with Flambridge? I guess we could put the Imseti, Glory of Horus, into our back row using the effect of Flambridge Dragon. And then during the opponent's turn, we'll just hold reload in our hand, simply because right now there's really no reason to set it. We don't have a Volcanic in our hand to pitch to draw. So right now we can just keep this card in the hand. And then during the opponent's turn, we can use Flambridge's effect to actually bring out the Imseti to our side of the field, just to have as additional disruption as the opponent tries to break our board. In addition to that, if they're normal or special, we do have the Divine Temple, which will go ahead and bring out our copy of Oak, and then Oak can go ahead and recover any of our banished level 1 Pyros or level 1 Pyros that are in our grave. Since we have Flambridge on field, we're probably going to keep our level 1 Pyros in grave, which are Poplar and Ash. So with the Oak effect, we're probably going to be recovering one of our banished Volcanics. Probably Rimfire is the best one here. So we'd bring him back to our side of the field with the effect of Oak. Keep in mind this is all during the opponent's turn, of course. And then we obviously have the Princess Disruption, plus the Emission effect and the effect of Kurenai to just burn the living crap out of our opponent. So this is the first test hand and pretty much the board that we end on. So now we're gonna go ahead and put everything back, shuffle up, and then try this again and see what changes. But for this being a 60 card deck, it is extremely fun to play and very consistent and really powerful, honestly. You know, this deck doesn't, like, even that hand that we drew, that test hand, like, obviously wasn't the most ideal hand, but look at the board that we ended on, and that would be considered like a suboptimal hand. Very, very strong. So this deck is just a ton of fun and just straight gas, honestly. Like, there's very little times where you just don't make boards like that. Like, every hand just gets you into huge extension. And like I said, it was something that I wanted to put together just for kind of shits and grins, I guess. But it actually worked out being very formidable. And I was quite surprised as to actually how good it was. And like I said, that's pretty much how the deck came to be. I started doing the fire content at the beginning of the month. I made a pure Snake Eye Fire King deck. Then after that, I hopped on the Volcanic train a bit, and then I got the crazy idea to combine both strategies, and this is how the 60 card deck was born. So we went ahead and pile shuffled for you real quick on camera. Shuffle up a bit more, and then we're going to go ahead and cut. And we're going to play out our second test hand here. We're going to play this out again like we're going first. So we have Duomateth, Blaze Accelerator Reload, Fire Ejection, Snake Eye Oak, and Bonfire. So this is a very interesting opening hand. Let's see, how do I want to do this? So let's go ahead and lead with Fire Ejection first. This is going to send a Pyro monster from our deck to grave. Then if we send a Volcanic, we can apply the following effect. We can either burn the opponent equal to its level times 100, or we get to special summon a Bomb token, which is Pyro, Fire, level 1, attack 1,000, defense 1,000 to the opponent's field. And if that token is destroyed, the controller takes 500 damage. So this is pretty much like a Foolish Burial for Pyro decks, which is really, really strong. And there's obviously tons of good targets we can send for this. So I guess we can get the ball rolling with our shells in this particular case. So we can go ahead and dump shell. And then we're going to go ahead and give our opponent the beautiful Sheepy Bomb token. We're just going to place this here in the center. That way you guys know that the opponent has the Bomb token. So then Fire Ejection goes to grave. Then what we're going to do here is we're going to activate the graveyard effect of Shell, paying 500 of our life to search for another copy of Shell. The only problem with 60 card decks is like when you got to search something, you're sitting there for several seconds trying to find it. So we added Shell to our hand off the effect of Shell. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make another play with our Bonfire, letting us add a level 4 lower Pyro. Now, generally, I know a lot of people assume that we're going to add Snake Eye Ash or Poplar. With this particular hand we have, we're actually not going to do that. I'm going to be searching a Volcanic Trooper off of the effect of our Bonfire, and you'll see why shortly. So for those of you thinking, oh, this is just a, you know, Snake Eye Turbo, it's really not. Like, we really do utilize the Volcanics to their full potential. which is obviously very fun. So what we're going to do here is we're going to spend our normal summon on the Volcanic Trooper, activating Trooper's effect on summon to search for a Volcanic card except himself. That's going to go ahead and grab ourselves a copy of Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. Very powerful spell card here. Then what we're going to do next is we can use Trooper's effect actually to go ahead and discard a card. So let's go ahead and discard our Blaze Accelerator Reload to our graveyard, making that live instantly with the Grave effect. So if we were going second, we can immediately banish the Reload to then do our Scattershot play, which is really crazy. But we're going to discard the Reload from hand, and Trooper's going to special summon another bomb token to the opponent's field. So that will be our second Sheepy bomb token to their side. Again, keep in mind if one of those bomb tokens is destroyed, the controller takes 500 damage, which is obviously very hilarious. And now what we're going to do is we're going to activate Volcanic Blaze Accelerator in our spell Trap Zone by sending the original Blaze Accelerator from our hand, face-up field, or deck to grave as an activation cost. Now at this point we can actually do some really crazy things here. So we can use Volcanic Blaze Accelerator's first effect, allowing us to special summon a Volcanic monster from our hand. So we'll go ahead and special summon out a copy of Volcanic Shell here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use the secondary effect of Volcanic Blaze. We can target a monster the opponent controls, send a level 1 Pyro from our deck to grave, and if we do, we destroy that target. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and send ourselves a copy of our Volcanic Rimfire once I find it. So send Rimfire off the effect of Blaze Accelerator, and that will allow us to destroy one of our opponent's bomb tokens. And then remember, the opponent will take 500 damage when that occurs. So that is the first bomb token down. Opponent will take 500. Then at resolution, Rimfire will trigger because it will send to grave, so we can banish it from our graveyard to go ahead and then send a Volcanic monster from our deck to grave except itself. This is where we're going to get access to our Volcanic Emperor. Keep in mind the opponent has already taken 500 damage, so they're at 75 at this point. Then what we're going to do is we're going to link off the shell for, not Linkuriboh this time, we're going to go for Anima because we actually want the Spellcaster, and this will make sense momentarily. We'll utilize the graveyard effect of our shell, paying 500 of our life points to search for another copy of shell. Once I find it, obviously. There it is. And then remember, the opponent still controls one bomb token so far, which is our little sheepy token here. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to send our Trooper and our Anima, who's a spellcaster, to the graveyard to go ahead and summon from our deck as an inherent summon our Fire Dog, the Great Inari Fire. If I could find it. Awakening of the Possessed Greater Inari Fire, excuse me. Forgot its name for a second there. We can special this from our hand or deck on a non-activated effect by sending a level 4 or lower fire we control and a spellcaster monster we control to grave. So we special this card from our deck in this case. When it's summoned this way, we can inflict damage to our opponent equal to the attack of one monster they control, our choice. So since they control a bomb token, we can burn them for its attack, which in this case would be 1000. Obviously really, really crazy there. Then, let's see, how do we want to proceed? There's a couple of things we can do. Why don't we go ahead and then... We do have the ability to go Trooper, I suppose. So let's activate Emperor's Effect in Grave. We'll banish our 3 Pyros, so we'll banish the Trooper, the Shell, and a Shell. That will allow us to go ahead and summon out our Volcanic Emperor. In this case, we will burn the opponent. Remember, they've already taken 1500 damage, so they should be at 65. And they're going to take 2000 more points of damage here because we have 4 banished Pyros now off the Emperor effect. And then we're going to set ourselves a Volcanic Trap. So if they were at 65 already and they take 2000 more, they'll be at 4500 currently, which is obviously very, very strong. So So we will go ahead and set ourselves a copy of Volcanic Emission. Go ahead and shuffle up. And at this point, I'm wondering... Yeah, because there's not really anything else that we can... Let me just see real quick here. Obviously, and you guys are watching this obviously at home, let me know if there was a different line I could have gone down as well. But if we want to get our Awakening of the Possessed in the graveyard, we have to link it off. But right now there isn't really much we can link into without, you know, obviously losing our Emperor in the process, which I guess isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know what? Yeah, screw it. Why don't we just do this? Let's go ahead and link our Emperor and our Greater Inari Fire off to the graveyard. We will go ahead and bring out, let's say, a copy of IP Masquerena. That will now trigger our graveyard effect of our Awakening of the Possessed Greater Inari Fire to search for a either a Possessed spell trap or a Spiritual Fire Art spell trap from deck to hand. So we'll go ahead and grab our Spiritual Fire Art Kurenai off the graveyard effect of our Greater Inari Fire. We will go ahead and set that to our side of the field. And we're going to go ahead and pass at this point. Now, this looks very suboptimal, obviously. All we have is the IP Masquerena. But fear not, because on the opponent's turn, we have a couple of things we can do. We're going to activate Volcanic Emission on the opponent's turn. Keep in mind, they're already at 4,500 life points. We're going to use Volcanic Emission's first effect to go ahead and special summon a Volcanic from our deck to our side of the field, ignoring its summoning conditions, but then we return it to the hand during the end phase. We're going to special summon our second copy of Emperor using the first effect of Emission here, which will send it to grave. And now at this point, we put the opponent in a weird scenario because now they're going to be taking 500 damage each time they special summon. Keep in mind, they're already at 4,500 life points with the amount of burn we inflicted last turn, but that's not the only thing they need to be concerned with, because now we also have our Blaze Accelerator Reload in our graveyard, which as a quick effect can banish itself from grave to send a Volcanic monster from our deck to the graveyard, which will of course be a copy of our Scattershot. Then when Scattershot's sent off of Reload effect, we can send 2 more Scattershots from our deck to the graveyard to destroy all monsters the opponent controls and then burn them for 1,500 damage in total, 500 for each Scattershot. So we still have a full board wipe here with an additional 1,500 damage, which, assuming they're still at 45, would bring them down to 3,000. And then we still have Emperor here. But now at this point, that's pretty much game, because now we can just go Fire Art Kurenai, tributing the Emperor, and then burning them for Emperor's attack, which is 31, which would effectively game them. So we still basically had access to a pseudo FTK of sorts, because in theory, we could just do this reload in their draw phase, sending off 3 Scattershots. I mean, yeah, there's nothing to destroy, but they still take the 1,500 burn. And then at resolution of that, in the draw phase still, we could go Kurenai, attributing Emperor, to then burn them for their remaining amount of life, which is effectively an FTK. Because this is, I mean, kind of in their draw phase, they really haven't had a chance to play their turn out yet, so... Excuse me while I drink some water. But, yeah, so, I mean, even that particular hand, and like I said, you guys are watching the video, you could let me know down in the comments if there was another line I could have went down. But either way, this line, as silly as it looked, still did lethal to the opponent as early as their draw phase, just with the amount of burn damage that the Volcanics can produce. So let's go ahead and shuffle everything back, and before we wrap up the video, we'll try and do one more test hand. That way you guys can see at least another test hand and kind of gauge, you know, more or less what this deck actually plays like. But obviously it's very, very strong. You know, even with that hand that was a little wonky, we were still able to pull through and still put a decent board up, even with an IP as well. I mean, worst case scenario, IP can link off using herself and Emperor to then go into an SP Little Knight if needed. But obviously the Spiritual Fire Art Kurenai is just insane, especially when you can get an Emperor on the field, distributing the Emperor when it's going to be threatened at any point to then burn your opponent for damage equal to its attack. But also just sitting on Emperor as well. Like, your opponent's going to be special summoning, obviously, it's 2024. I mean, unless they're playing like Fluunderies or something where they get like 20 normal summons, your opponent's definitely going to have to special summon to some capacity. So they're going to be taking 500 damage each time they do that off Emperor alone. And then combine that with the fact that we also had a Scattershot play through our reload that was in the graveyard is obviously really nuts, because that's just an additional 1500 damage and a board wipe for the opponent. So there was definitely plenty of disruption on that previous board, albeit a different setup. But what was funny is that secondary test hand we did pretty much ended on a pseudo FTK, because like I said, we could game them in their draw phase, you know, as soon as we want by just using the effects of the reload in the graveyard and the Spiritual Fire Arcuri on the field, given that they've already started their turn with only 4,500 life. So we went ahead and shuffled here. Now we're going to still play this hand out like we're going first again. We have Volcanic Shell, Wanted, Diabellstar, and a Flamberge Dragon. Well, this is a hand. So, even though we already have the Diabell in hand, this is why we play two. We're going to use Wanted here in the draw phase to go ahead and add ourselves another copy of Black Witch to the hand. Just deck thinning. Wanted will then go to grave, and now our hand is Diabell, Wanted, and a Shell, which isn't the worst hand, honestly. This hand can still go pretty hard considering. So we can go Diabell effects, pitching the Shell to go ahead and special summon herself, activating her effect to search for a Sinful Spoil spell trap, which will be our copy of original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye. Then at resolution of that, we can go ahead and use Shell's effect now that it's in the grave, paying 500 life to search for another copy of Shell. Shell into Shell is like one of the most broken interactions in this deck. It's really nuts how powerful Shell is for such a simple card. Then what we can do here is we can go original, sending Diabell to go ahead and then special summon a level 1 fire from our deck. Now we've already done the Snake Eye, Ash into Poplar line. I think with this particular hand, we're going to try and go for something a bit different. So let's go into our Fire King line, because that's one of the things we haven't showcased here yet. So let's go ahead and special summon out Ponix with the effect of original. Activate the Ponix effect on summon to search for a Fire King spell trap, which in this case will be a copy of Sanctuary. We'll go ahead and then activate Sanctuary, which will then place a Fire King Island directly from our deck to our field zone. If I could just find it here really quickly. Of course, it is all the way at the top. So now that we have that established, and we also have original and Wanted in our graveyard, we can go ahead and then activate the effect of our Fire King Island to then go ahead and destroy... What do we want to pop here? I guess, you know what? Let's go ahead and use this effect to pop our copy of Volcanic Shell. To then add a Garunix from our deck to our hand. In which case Garunix will trigger because a fire was destroyed. Even if he wasn't in the hand when this occurs, he still triggers. He can go ahead and special summon himself, and then he can destroy a Fire Beast, Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast from our hand, face-up field, or the deck. Now this is where things get crazy. We're going to be destroying from the deck a copy of Baby Kirin, or the small Fire King Kirin, Fire King Avatar Kirin. From our deck, we're going to destroy this card, and this is a really cool bridge here, because this card, when it's destroyed and sent to grave, we can send one fire monster from our deck to our graveyard. So it's just a generic Foolish Burial for any fire, which is obviously really strong. So we're going to activate the effect of Kirin. That's going to allow us to go ahead and dump ourselves a copy of Rimfire, in which case Rimfire will trigger since it was sent to grave, banishing itself, to then send a Volcanic monster from deck to grave, which is how we get access into our Emperor. So this is why we play the Fire Kings in this list, because Baby Kirin acts as such a crazy bridge. Like, you could literally, like, your Fire King engine directly gets you into your Volcanic line, which is very, very strong, obviously. Then what we can do here is we can use the second shell that we destroyed with Island, pay 500 points to search our third and final copy of Shell from the deck to our hand. Now that we've exhausted all of the shells out of the deck, keep in mind we still haven't normal summoned yet, so let's go ahead and use our graveyard effect of our Wanted, banishing itself, to then take our original Sinful Spoils, placing it on the bottom of the deck and just getting a free draw for our troubles. Another Rimfire, that's really funny. Now what we can do here is, let's see, how do I want to go about this? How many Pyros do we have in our grave? Just 2 at this point. Keep in mind we still haven't normal summoned yet, which is obviously really crazy. Do we have... No, we don't. So, what we can do here... We can actually activate, or not even activate, we can just go ahead and normal summon out our copy of Shell in this particular case. Now, even though the opponent does not have a monster on their field, because we weren't able to give them a bomb token, we can still link off our copy of Ponix to then make ourselves a copy of Anima, putting a spellcaster and a level 4 lower fire on our field. We can send both of these to the graveyard to then special summon from our deck the Greater Inari Fire. Which is obviously really, really cool. Now, we don't get the burn effect that it produces on the summon because the opponent doesn't have anything we can burn them for. But that's still quite alright, because now all we're going to do here is we're just going to use the Inari Fire and the Garunix as link material. In this particular instance, we can go ahead and into a Sunlight Wolf here. That will trigger the graveyard effect of our Greater Inari Fire, searching ourselves a copy of Spiritual Fire Arcuranai. And then at this point, we can go ahead, banish the Greater Inari Fire, banish a shell, and banish a shell to facilitate the summon of our Volcanic Emperor. We will burn the opponent for 4,000 damage since there are 4 banished Pyros currently, and then we'll use Emperor's Effect to set a Volcanic Trap directly from our deck to our field, which will be Volcanic Emission. So we'll go ahead and set that. And then that will also trigger Sunlight Wolf's effect to target a fire in our grave and add it to our hand. So in this case, we can actually go ahead and add back the Ponix to our hand, so we have it in our hand for follow-up. Since it wasn't destroyed this turn, we just get it back for free anyway through the Sunlight Wolf regardless. And you can see all the advantage that this deck puts out, because look at our hand. We still have 6 cards in hand, which is really, really strong, plus a Flamberge for follow-up, which is obviously really insane. We can go ahead and set our copy of Spiritual Fire Arcuranai. And I think that will wrap up our turn. I mean, we still have Flamberge, Rimfire, and Ponix in hand, plus the Garunix setup in the graveyard, along with Emission, as well as Kurenai, to be able to burn the opponent. And then we just use Emperor, you know, to our advantage. We can also set Wanted if we want to activate Wanted on the opponent's turn. So obviously you can kind of see how this deck actually unfolds. Very, very powerful, very combo oriented, and just a ton of fun, and has so many lines and branching ways for each archetype to work together to actually get, you know, to your end goal. And like I said, I know a lot of people are kind of sick of Fire King Snake Eye at this point, but really this deck is honestly more of a Volcanic list that's just using Snake Eyes and Fire Kings to help extend and push through Disruption and help insulate their boards. But that's going to wrap it up for our test hands. Hopefully that gave you guys some insight on how you should be piloting this deck and some of the lines that it can produce. Like I said, this deck just prints free advantage because on the opponent's turn, if they try to interact with their board, like we have both Ponix and Garunix, which can be summoned when anything's destroyed, and then both Ponix and Garunix are just going to get us further into more follow-up and more card advantage. You know, it's just really, really strong. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said, the deck profile is linked in the description below. Be sure to check that out, and make sure that you guys are subscribed so you don't miss out on any more future uploads. We should be getting a TCG ban list pretty soon. If that does happen and Fire does get it directly hit, I might do an update to this deck list. But either way, stay tuned. You know, we're only a few short weeks away from Legacy of Destruction's release, and you guys do not want to miss out on the content that I'll be bringing you post Legacy of Destruction. So with that being said, this is Nick hitting that end phase. Peace.